during the last 3+ years, there has not been one Democrat that I can remember that has come out and said anything about the border. Not one. If you find one within the last, forget about the last couple of months. Let's go for, let's say, the first 2.5 years of Biden's presidency. There has not been one Democrat of significant weight who has said anything about what's happening at the border. In fact, they did the exact opposite. These sanctuary cities wanted more illegals. They asked for them, and then when finally the governors of these border states started to bus them to these different places, they began to panic a little bit, and then they began to push back. And then you started to hear squawks from mayors and other people in these cities that were receiving bus loads, in some cases, plane loads in some other cases, of illegal immigrants. Okay, but really, you never heard anybody say, any of the congressmen or the senators really made a lot of noise about this. Certainly didn't hear the president say anything about it. Nothing. Nobody said anything. And he put Kamala Harris as the czar. She never visited. But Senator Murphy does what Senator Murphy does so well in his condescending tone when he's speaking in the hallowed halls of Congress. Yesterday, he said this. Now, keep in mind, I never once got an email saying, I'm very concerned about the border. I never once got an email. I never heard him say, I'm going to do something about the border. Nothing. Nothing. I don't remember a peep from Senator Murphy. Now, Senator Murphy has this to say.
Mr. President, this is unbelievable. Like, I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
We were all here.
Yeah.
This wasn't a dream. This really happened.
Yep.
Republicans all stood up and said that they wanted a bipartisan bill to fix the border. The border is a priority. The border is a crisis. With the Republican senator appointed by the Republican caucus to cut the deal. And within 24 hours before the ink was even dry, Republican senators decided they don't want a bipartisan bill to fix the border. They want to pretend they never asked for a bipartisan border bill. Because what they actually want is chaos.
This. Now, all of a sudden, Democrats line up and say, well, here it is. Here's the bill to strengthen the border. Here's the bill to get the job done. Well, they've waited until 10 million people have come in. You want to look at the actual definition of chaos? Chaos is when you allow 10 million people to come through the southern border of the United States, unvetted, unchecked. And now they're overwhelming the system. When it began, when we saw the hordes of people on the nightly news on a regular basis, 5,000, 8,000, 12,000, all headed to the southern border. And they just kept coming. And those of us with microphone access were screaming about it. Those of them with television access were screaming about it. And none of the Murphys of the world were doing anything about it. Nothing. That is chaos. To me, that is causing chaos. What's going on now is politics. And most people will say, well, let's just get the job done. Let's just do what's best for the country. What's best for the country was 3 years ago to shut the border down. That's what was best for the country. I was at an event on Sunday. And at that event on Sunday, Themis Claridis was there. She was the former Speaker of the House. And she spoke. I spoke. A couple other people spoke. And she had made a point. When she was the minority head in the State House, they had, and I remember this at the time because I had conversations with Senator Formica about this, some other people too, Senator Fasano about this, on the air, which was they were crafting a bipartisan budget bill while the state was getting ready to crash and burn, okay, there was reckless amounts of dangerous spending. That was chaos. That was like 6 years ago, I think. I said on the air, I said to Fasano, I said, why don't you just let this thing blow up? Why don't you take this thing all the way to the bottom so that the people of Connecticut can actually see how bad their leadership has been to them and for them? And he said, no, we have a and to a certain extent, he was right. We have a responsibility to the people of Connecticut to make sure they get it right. The problem is they got it right, and this is exactly what I told them. I said, you're going to get this, and it's going to help Connecticut, and they're going to take credit for it. And that's exactly what has happened in the state of Connecticut. Fasano and Themis and the rest of that group got a bipartisan budget, which helps you. It does. You got a better situation in Connecticut because of it. Yet the Democrats are the ones who lay claim to that. They hold on to that like its own. That's what's going on here. Exactly the same, a little different, but that's a similar situation. They now want to come in as if they're the knights on the white horse saving America at the last moment from the ugly Republicans who have been banging their fist on the table for the better part of 3 years talking about the southern border. So if I were in Congress right now, I would not vote for this. I would not vote for it. Out of that principle alone. Hold your breath for the next 200 days, and then hopefully you get a change in leadership, and you can figure out what to do with the 10 or 12 million people by that time that come across the border.